Hey guys, it's Crystal from livingwithgastroparesis.com, and it's time for another FAQ Friday. So today I want to do something a little bit different. The last several weeks we've been talking about kind of the nuts and bolts of managing gastroparesis. Things like diet, medication, complementary therapy. This week I want to talk about something that is definitely just as important, probably more challenging, but something we don't talk about nearly as often. And that's the mental aspect of living with gastroparesis. And so, if you were to ask me what's the most important thing that I've done on my journey towards living well with gastroparesis, it would be what I'm going to talk about in this video. So, diet, nutrition, exercise, medication, the gastric neurostimulator. Certainly these things are all fantastic. I mean, that's what most of my work is based on. But those are things that have helped me manage gastroparesis. What I'm going to talk about in this video is what has really allowed me to live well with gastroparesis. And so, where this all really started for me, why I wanted to talk about this week was, again, on Facebook. Earlier this week I posted on Facebook, just kind of offhand, about an experience I had had at Starbucks with a friend. I met a friend at Starbucks. She ordered a Java chip Frappuccino with the whipped cream and the chocolate sauce and the sprinkles, and I bought a bottle of water. I asked for a big cup of ice, and basically I pulled my Orgain out of my purse and I sat there and drank my Orgain over ice. Well, she drank her Frappuccino and we had a fantastic conversation, and my comment on Facebook was, everybody was happy. And I got a reply to that post that really struck me. And the reply was, basically, that's great, good idea, great advice, but I wouldn't be happy. Basically, I wouldn't be happy doing that. And that really got me thinking. It got me thinking about what it was that allowed me to get from that point where I wouldn't have been happy with that situation. Because believe me, I was there at one point. So I was thinking, what got me from there to where I am now? Where, I was like legitimately happy with that experience. I had a nice time and I didn't think twice about it. So, I was thinking, what got me from one point to the next? And what I really want you guys to know is that I was not always positive, and what you see now is not how I've always approached my life with gastroparesis. So about probably 3 to 4 years after my diagnosis, I was miserable. You guys, I was miserable. And I spent the first couple of years kind of frantically searching for, the answer. I was seeing every specialist I could find, experts. I was going to the clinics, trying all the different medications, the Botox, everything. And when I had exhausted my medical resources at the time, I started seeing all kinds of alternative practitioners, and I spent thousands of dollars on supplements. And I was frantically looking for the magic pill, the perfect diet, the expert, the person, the thing that was going to take all of this away. And at the base of that was the fact that I really did not want to have gastroparesis. And of course none of us want to have gastroparesis, but I was fighting every single day the fact that I had gastroparesis. I didn't want it. It wasn't fair. I shouldn't have it. My life would be so much better if I didn't have it. XYZ would be different if I didn't have it. And so every day I was fighting against the reality that I had gastroparesis. And so it sounds kind of odd, but it was really 3 or 4 years after I was diagnosed when I finally accepted that I had gastroparesis. And that acceptance is what really allowed everything else to start to shift and everything else to start to change. And so that's what I want to talk about with you for the remainder of the video, is acceptance. And I think a huge misconception about acceptance is that acceptance is giving up. And it's not. They are not the same thing. Giving up is submission. And acceptance and submission are not the same thing. So acceptance is really all it is saying, this is what it is. This is reality in this moment. So in this moment, right now, I have gastroparesis. That's just the reality. And that doesn't mean that I can't work towards not having gastroparesis in the future. It's in this moment, right now. So acceptance also doesn't have anything to do with the future. Accepting the fact that I have gastroparesis today, that does not mean that I'm going to have gastroparesis next week, next month, next year. That does not mean I'm going to accept that I am just, I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life, and I'm going to have to be on a feeding tube, like the things that I've read online. That's not acceptance, okay? Acceptance is saying, in this moment, right now, I have gastroparesis. What am I going to do about it? So there's two parts. The first part is accepting what is. And when you accept what is, you really free yourself to do something about it. Because when we're struggling against reality, okay, the thing about fighting reality is you can't win. You can never win. And so you can fight it every single day, but it's exhausting. And it doesn't get you anywhere. And that's what leads you to suffering. I mean, there's a quote from Janine Roth. She's the author of Women, Food, and God. And in the book, she says something along the lines of, hell is wanting life to be different than it is. So when we're fighting the reality every single day, we're fighting that we have gastroparesis because we don't want to, we think we shouldn't, we think it's not fair. When we're fighting that reality, that's our hell. That's suffering. There's that other quote that I'm sure you guys have heard, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So when we're fighting against reality, that's what creates our suffering. When we decide to accept our reality, when we decide to say, right now, in this moment, I have gastroparesis. That frees us up to then say, what can I do about it? And I think that's something we'll talk about in another video. I think the first part is enough for right now, but I really want to get across the power of just taking that step. Just accepting the fact that right now, in this moment, I have gastroparesis. That's freeing, and then we can do something about it. So I think one more point I want to make about that is a lot of times we think we don't have any control, right? We think there's nothing I can do about this illness. And you're beating your head against the wall trying to figure out what you can do. And the one thing that you absolutely have control over is whether or not you choose to accept the illness. How you choose to view what's happening in your life and how you choose to approach it, that is something you have the choice. That's your choice to make. So right now, in this moment, I have gastroparesis. What am I going to do about it? And this applies obviously to overall. I mean, this is really the first step. This is really how things started to change for me, applying this, kind of overall. But it also applies to every single circumstance you find yourself in. So, going back to that Starbucks experience earlier this week, I mean, The reality in that moment is that I have gastroparesis. It doesn't mean for the rest of my life, every single time I go to Starbucks, I have to, get a cup of ice and drink Orgain. But right now, today, or, that day, I wanted to enjoy a conversation with an old friend, and I knew that my best bet was Orgain. I have gastroparesis in this minute. What can I do about it? I can drink my Orgain and have a fantastic conversation with an old friend. So that applies to every situation you find yourself in. Vacations, social events, holidays. Holidays are the worst because you sit there at the Thanksgiving table and you think, I wish I could eat Thanksgiving dinner. It's not fair that I can't eat Thanksgiving dinner. I should be able to eat Thanksgiving dinner. If I could eat Thanksgiving dinner, I would be happy right now. And, if you accept the fact that this year at Thanksgiving, that doesn't mean next year, it doesn't mean every year for the rest of my life, but this year at Thanksgiving, I have gastroparesis. So I can't eat, grandma's stuffing and Aunt Susie's pecan pie. What can I do? I can make food that I can eat, and I can eat what I can, and I can enjoy the time with my family. So do you see how there's such a difference there between fighting and struggling and resisting and accepting? And accepting doesn't mean that you approve of the situation or that you're happy about the situation, Accepting that you have gastroparesis doesn't mean you're like, yay, I have gastroparesis, that's great, that's fine, it's not a big deal. It's still a big deal. It's life-altering, but you can accept it and then do what you can to, find treatment options, to live well, and accepting it frees you up to do those things. So what I want you guys to do, what I want you to take away from this, is to start practicing acceptance. And it's not a once and for all kind of thing. It's not like you say, okay, I accept that I have gastroparesis and now, everything's going to be great and so much easier and fine. We vacillate between acceptance and resistance. But I want you to start practicing it, I still have bad days, trust me. I still have days where I'm very resistant. I still have days where I'm overwhelmed and I don't want it to be this way. Ask my husband. I have those days. But I come back to that acceptance, and I come back to, okay, in this moment, I have gastroparesis. What can I do about it? And that's what I want you guys to start practicing, because the more you practice that, I guarantee you things will start to shift. And the other things that you're doing, the diet, the nutrition, the lifestyle, the things that we talk about most of the time, those things, you'll have more energy to do those things. You'll have more freedom to do those things. And I guarantee that things will start to change for you. So I hope that this was helpful. And if it was, please share it. If you liked it, click the like button. And join me on my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/livingwithgastroparesis, because I really want to start a conversation about these kinds of things. I want us to start talking about the mental challenges of living with gastroparesis. So come on over, join the conversation, please post your comments, and I will see you again next Friday for another FAQ.